Chapter 1. Witness of the Mind. The courtroom in downtown Los Angeles buzzed with noise. As always, Judge Harrison, known for his stern demeanor and dismissive attitude toward youth, was especially irritable that day. Standing before him was a teenage girl, no older than 16. She wore jeans, a hoodie, and carried a backpack slung over one shoulder. Her name was Elaine Brooks. "You do realize where you are?" the judge snapped, banging his gavel. "This isn't TikTok or your school dance. Why do you think you can act like an adult?" "Because I am an adult, Your Honor," Elaine replied calmly. "Legally speaking, I'm representing myself as counsel. I'm a licensed junior attorney under California Code 702.3. A laugh echoed in the courtroom. Some jurors scoffed. Judge Harrison leaned back in his chair, amused. "What's next? You graduated from Harvard at age 3? Elaine quietly opened her backpack and handed the bailiff a folder. He carried it to the bench. The judge flipped through the documents lazily until his expression froze. "These are real." The papers confirmed it. Elaine Brooks had an IQ of 178, passed the California bar exam at 15, and completed legal training under a federal judge. Today she was representing a teenage boy accused of shoplifting. "May I proceed with my client's defense?" she asked confidently. The judge couldn't speak. He simply nodded. For the next hour and a half, Elaine stunned the courtroom. She dismantled the prosecution's argument point by point, exposed inconsistencies, and revealed security footage the state had missed. Her legal guardian and senior attorney sat silently in the back, never intervening. In the end, the charges were dropped. Judge Harrison stood, visibly shaken. "Miss Brooks, I apologize for how I treated you. I believe we all just learned a lesson today." Elaine nodded. "No worries, Your Honor. We're all learning, even you." Chapter 2. The File Without a Name. A week later, Elaine received a call from an unknown number. "This is Supreme Court Justice Lewis Holmes," the voice said. "We need you in Washington. A plane is ready. You'll be escorted." 2 days later, she sat in a gray, windowless room in the U.S. Supreme Court building, across from Judge Holmes, FBI agent Morena, and Senator Marshall. "You're too smart for your age," the senator said bluntly. "That's dangerous. But right now, we need someone no one suspects." Judge Holmes slid a folder across the table. Inside, blackmail records, secret recordings, wire transfers. Powerful names: prosecutors, lawmakers, corporate CEOs. "This is a corruption network that reaches the top," said Holmes. "We've failed to bring them down. But you could slip through the cracks." Elaine closed the folder. "I'll do it, but I'll become a target." "Yes," Holmes replied, "but you're not just a lawyer anymore. You're a threat." The weeks that followed were like a spy thriller. Elaine infiltrated legal firms, recorded illegal meetings, hacked email servers, and gathered evidence, sometimes barely escaping. She built a team: a reformed hacker, a disgraced judge, and a rogue journalist. Chapter 3. The Shadow over La Croix. 2 months after the takedown, Elaine learned about the La Croix Club, a secret society of billionaires and elites, including one of the two final names from the folder, Senator Lawrence Devon. She infiltrated a masked gala under the identity of a wealthy heiress. The guests wore animal-themed golden masks: foxes, hawks, lions. Elaine wore a raven mask. "You're quite the legend, Ms. Brooks," said a man in a dragon mask. "But legends disappear here." A bartender whispered to her, "They know you're not who you say. You're the bait." She turned around. The room had gone quiet. A man removed his mask. It was Senator Devon, smiling. "Welcome, Elaine. We've been expecting you." Suddenly, the lights dimmed, candles flickered, and the guests formed a circle. Someone slipped a note into her hand. "You're right, the second name is here. To survive, go behind the mirror." She pushed on the mirror. It opened. Behind it, a staircase leading to the La Croix archive. There, under glass, she found a document. "Helen Grace, head of the federal bank, member of La Croix, signed in blood. Date, 1971. She took a picture, but she wasn't alone. "You've gone too far," said a woman in gray. It was Helen Grace holding a syringe. "You'll either join us or disappear." Elaine smiled. "Too late. This is live." That same moment, TVs across America showed the confession of corruption. The La Croix Club was exposed. Elaine disappeared again. Chapter 4. Return of the Shadow. 10 years passed. The U.S. plunged into chaos, election interference, cyber attacks, collapsing markets. Rumors spread. The shadow had returned. In Paris, a woman with short blonde hair and a raven pendant read the paper in a nameless cafe. "You're Madame Lenoir?" a man asked. "We know who you are." She nodded. "So you want me to destroy Concord Group?" He nodded. Concord Group, a global shadow government, was run by Lawrence Devon, she finished. "I thought he died in the La Croix fire." He faked it. Now he controls half the world's digital infrastructure. Elaine infiltrated the U.S. again under a new identity. She discovered Concord's AI system, ECHO, an algorithm that predicted and controlled elections before they happened. To destroy it, she had to plant a virus manually into its core, deep beneath the Pentagon. She made it to the server. As she uploaded the virus, Devon's voice came through her earpiece. "Stop. Without echo, the world will fall apart." "No," she said. "Without truth, the world never stood a chance." She pressed the button. Power shut down across the globe. Hidden information flooded the media. The world began to see. Elaine vanished again. Epilogue. In 2030, at the entrance of the International Court of Justice, a plaque appeared. "Truth needs silence to grow, but one day it always screams." E. Brooks. Chapter 5. The Whisper Rebellion. What do you do when you save the world, and no one thanks you for it? After the fall of Echo, the world changed, but not in the way Elaine Brooks had imagined. Governments scrambled, stock markets froze, secret files spilled into the public, and a flood of truth shook societies from New York to Tokyo. But instead of unity, the world panicked. Chaos erupted. Leaders blamed hackers, foreign enemies, and her, though never by name. She disappeared into silence. 2 years later, deep in the rural outskirts of Austria, a stone monastery had been repurposed. There were no signs, no digital records. Inside, the hallways echoed with quiet footsteps, pages turning, voices whispering in over a dozen languages. This was Elaine's sanctuary, but it was also the birthplace of something new. A boy from Nairobi, blind but with a photographic memory. A girl from Ukraine, once imprisoned for writing about corruption. A trans teen from Brazil who decoded a criminal network's Bitcoin laundering at age 16. Elaine gathered them, taught them, trained them. Each had been broken by systems she had fought, and each had one thing in common: they wanted to change the world, but not become its rulers. One student, sitting under a flickering candlelight, once asked her, "Are we heroes?" Elaine didn't smile. Number. Heroes ask for medals. We ask for silence. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., a new agency, the Bureau of National Order, had been formed. Its sole mission: hunt down rogue justice networks. At the top of their list was a code name: the Raven. They didn't know it yet, but Elaine Brooks was building a rebellion under their very noses. Not with guns, but with minds. Not with chaos, but with knowledge. And when the time came, when a new world would need honest defenders, ones uncorrupted by money, media, or power, they would rise. In a world screaming with lies, they would move as whispers. Location: London, Shadow Academy, Operations Wing. It was a stormy night. Thunder rolled beyond the reinforced windows of the academy. The students, now operating as full-fledged agents, were finishing their final assignments. Elaine Brooks, or Professor Lenoir, was in her glass-walled command room, reviewing encrypted reports from her network. Her most promising student, Mikel Ramos, had just completed a deep infiltration into Nova Biotech's offshore data servers. But something felt off. The code signature didn't match Mikhail's usual patterns. The files were too clean. She leaned forward and muttered to herself, He left no trace at all, not even one misstep. That's not Mikhail. That's a setup. Suddenly, the alarms went off. Unauthorized transmission detected. Outbound. Channel. Encrypted. Destination. Unknown. Elaine rushed out of her office. She stormed into the tactical lab, where a screen showed surveillance footage. Mikhail slipping a silver drive into the pocket of a man in a trench coat, a known Nova Biotech's enforcer. Her heart sank. He sold us. Scene. Underground interrogation room, deep within the academy. Mikhail sat at the steel table, calm, his hands folded. Elaine entered the room silently. Why? She asked, not angry, just hollow. Mikhail looked at her, eyes cold. You taught us to find truth, to fight corruption, but you never told us we were becoming just like them, spying, manipulating, playing God. I didn't betray you. I freed myself. Elaine turned away for a moment, her jaw tight. You didn't free anyone. You just armed a monster. Meanwhile, Zurich, Switzerland, Nova Biotech's private boardroom. The CEO, flanked by digital security experts, reviewed the stolen academy files. Names, faces, missions, locations. It's finally time to strike her, burn the academy, end this once and for all. Back in London, Elaine gathered the remaining students in the main hall. This is no longer training, she told them. They're coming, and we won't hide. We will dismantle them piece by piece. But first, Mikhail is no longer one of us. One student raised a hand. Do we kill him? Elaine stared out the window into the darkness. Number. We do what the world refused to do for us. We hold him accountable by the law we created. Her eyes narrowed. The war had reached their doorstep. Chapter 7. The Trial of the Raven. She brought justice to the world, but now the world demands justice from her. Location: Geneva, Switzerland, United Nations International Tribunal. Year 2033. The marble courtroom stood quiet. Cameras were forbidden. The only sound was the slow ticking of the massive analog clock mounted above the judge's bench. Seated alone behind a sleek, armored glass wall was Elaine Brooks, the woman once known only as the Raven. She wore no handcuffs. She refused them. Her suit was black, her hair short, her eyes calm, unshaken. But the world around her trembled. The room was packed with international delegates, diplomats, reporters, victims of data leaks, former corporate officials, and a full panel of judges representing over 20 nations. This was the most anticipated trial in decades. She wasn't just being charged with crimes, she was being charged with changing the world. The charges: digital sabotage of critical infrastructure, unlawful release of classified information, collapse of multinational economies, violation of global sovereignty, acting as an extrajudicial authority without international mandate. Maximum sentence: life imprisonment without parole. The prosecutor: Lord Jonathan Wexler, UK Supreme Court veteran. The defense: Elaine Brooks, representing herself. Day 1. The opening statement. Wexler stood, towering and polished. Ladies and gentlemen of the tribunal, we do not try a child today. We try an idea, a dangerous one. That one mind, however brilliant, has the right to rewrite laws, to bring nations to their knees. Miss Brooks operated without elections, without consent, without law. And today we say, no more. He sat down, his voice echoing in the solemn silence. All eyes turned to the glass enclosure. Elaine stood. Her voice was clear, no microphone needed. The world gave power to the powerful, silence to the abused, and gold to liars. When the courts failed you, I spoke. When the laws betrayed you, I corrected them. Not with violence, but with truth. If that is terrorism, then may the world be ruled by cowards. A hush fell over the room. Day 3. Testimonies. Witness 1. A former Nova Biotech's whistleblower. If she hadn't leaked the side effects data, thousands of children would still be dead. Witness 2. A prime minister whose election was derailed by Echo's collapse. She destabilized my nation. We lost control. Witness 3. a man whose offshore accounts were revealed in Elaine's leak. I lost everything. Elaine cross-examined him. Everything, meaning your fourth yacht, funded by stolen pension funds? He went pale. Day 6. Surveillance footage and evidence. Dozens of documents were displayed, showing how Elaine's shadow network accessed private data, rerouted military drones to avoid civilian deaths, and exposed bribes at the UN. A judge interrupted. Miss Brooks, by what authority did you act? Elaine answered. By the one that no longer exists in this room. Moral responsibility. Day 8. The turning point. The tribunal received a private message, unsigned but authenticated by 12 international legal councils. If Miss Brooks is imprisoned, we will no longer recognize the authority of this court. She is not an enemy of order. She is the reason we still believe in justice. The room erupted. Half the tribunal stood to adjourn. Some stormed out in protest. The world was watching. Governments were divided. Riots began outside. Geneva was no longer neutral. Day 10. The verdict. The chief judge stood. Silence returned. This tribunal is split. No consensus. Final decision delegated to a public international vote under UN Article 12-7. For the first time in history, every nation would vote. One person, one vote. Elaine was escorted to a private room. There, a guard whispered, "If you want to run, we'll turn our backs." Elaine stared at the screen, broadcasting the early results. 67% in her favor. She smiled. Number. Let them choose. For once, the world deserves to decide. Epilogue. 1 week later, the results were final. Global vote, 71.2%. Elaine Brooks, not guilty. She walked out, head held high. But the war wasn't over. In the shadows of collapsing powers, whispers grew louder. She is free, the raven lives, and justice will never sleep again. Chapter 8. The Phoenix Doctrine. She was one voice in the dark. Now she becomes millions. Location: Iceland former data fortress, Frost Core. Year 2034. The snow fell heavily outside the towering black structure of Frost Core, a decommissioned NATO data center turned neutral ground for cyber reformists. Inside, under rows of humming servers, Elaine Brooks stood before a crowd. Not of students or spies, but of ordinary people. Teachers, bus drivers, retired journalists, teenage coders, mothers, fathers, janitors. She cleared her throat. You've waited for justice. Now it's time to become justice. Behind her, a massive holographic symbol glowed, a phoenix rising from shattered chains. The crowd erupted into a quiet, trembling energy. The Phoenix Doctrine had begun. What was the Phoenix Doctrine? It wasn't a group, not a movement. It was a system, an open-source framework Elaine released for free to the world. It taught people how to research legal loopholes and corrupt laws, track financial fraud using public data, encrypt their identities, launch ethical whistleblower campaigns, organize community trials when courts failed, use AI to flag disinformation in news. It spread faster than any movement in history. Within a year, over 50 million downloads. Elaine didn't lead it. She simply unleashed it. But with growth came enemies. Dubai. A royal prince declared Phoenix an act of cyber war. China. A firewall update permanently blocked all access to the doctrine. U.S. Congress voted to criminalize any use of Phoenix-based code, but they were too late. The people had already taken it. One story among millions. Lamia, 17, from Tunisia. Her father had been jailed for exposing corruption. Using the Phoenix system, Lamia uncovered bribery schemes in a national hospital chain. Her local court refused to listen, so she started a people's tribunal live-streamed on her roof. Thousands tuned in. Doctors testified. The CEO fled the country. A local judge, embarrassed, reopened the case. Elaine watched the stream from Iceland. She smiled softly. This is what I dreamed of. Elaine's decision. She walked into the cold, her breath visible in the night air. An old friend, Agent Morena, found her standing under the northern lights. You could still lead them, Morena said. Be the queen of this movement. Elaine shook her head. A phoenix doesn't have a queen, just fire. Fire that spreads. She looked up at the stars. They don't need me anymore. They just need to believe they can do what I did. And with that, she vanished again. No speeches, no goodbye, no statue. Epilogue. Years later, a child in Colombia asked their mother, was Elaine Brooks even real? The mother looked out the window where teenagers were painting phoenix wings on a school wall. If she wasn't, she said, someone had to become her.